Caregiving can sometimes feel like an impossible struggle. Caregivers may be torn between taking care of loved ones and trying to maintain balance in life. The good news is that it doesn't have to be that way. The Caring Generation with host Pamela D. Wilson is here to focus on the conversation of caring. You're not alone. In fact, you're in exactly the right place to share stories and learn tips and resources to help you and your loved ones. So now, please welcome the host of The Caring Generation, Pamela D. Wilson.
This is Pamela D. Wilson, caregiving expert, speaker, consultant, and guardian of the Caring Generation. The Caring Generation focuses on the conversation of caring, giving us permission to talk about aging, the challenges of caregiving, and everything in between. It's no surprise that needing care or becoming a caregiver changes everything. The Caring Generation is here to guide you along the journey and let you know that you're not alone. You are in exactly the right place to share stories and learn about caregiving programs and resources to help you and your loved ones plan for what's ahead. Invite your parents, spouses, family, friends, colleagues, coworkers, everyone you know, to listen to the show, available on podcast apps worldwide. And if you have a question or an idea for a future program, share your idea with me by commenting on my social media posts on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also complete my caregiver survey or request a consultation with me by going to my website, PamelaDWilson.com, clicking on the Contact Me link, and completing a form. Welcome to episode 187 of the Caring Generation podcast in the Take 15 series, Helpful Tips and Insights in 15 Minutes or Less. It's called Dealing with Grief and Loss. During this program, I'll discuss the many losses that family caregivers and persons with health concerns experience. In the case of caregiving, grief is experienced by the caregiver and the care receiver. This is often not considered. The experiences and suffering of both people are important. I will also answer caregiver questions about what grief is, how long it lasts, plus share practical tips and thoughts to move through this transformation of life that results from dealing with grief and loss. Let's begin by talking about the emotion of grief. Grief is a feeling, an emotion, it's a heartache that forces us to realize we miss something or miss someone who has left our life. For example, grief could be leaving your friends behind to move away to college. Even though college is exciting and it's a new adventure, there may be a degree of loss or fear. Grief might not be getting the job you dreamed of. It might be the loss of a pet or people in your life. It can also be losing a good friend due to a silly argument that can't be mended. For caregivers, there are many grief moments. Because a lot of your time is committed to caregiving, the loss of spending time with friends or doing activities that you love, grief about siblings who refuse to help or don't get along, difficulties at work, difficulties in a marriage or in a family, giving up a job, not applying for a promotion, thinking of all those dreams that you wanted to accomplish that you're not. There are so many aspects of grief and loss that relate to caregiving relationships that we may not relate to the word grief. On the other side, the care receiver experiences their own grief. They grieve the loss of physical or mental abilities due to sickness, injuries, or mental decline. If there's a serious diagnosis, the care receiver may be confronting worries about dying and related losses. While aging is a mental aspect, if a person is not cared for their body or mind throughout life, the physical process of aging can be more challenging. This is not to say that perfectly healthy people are not diagnosed with life-affecting illnesses. They are. However, the mindset of people in poor health versus healthy people confronted by health issues is very different. It's similar to the way that people think about grief. For example, one person may say, well, I'm just getting old. My body's falling apart. This is just what happens. The other person may say, oh, I have a long life ahead of me. I'm going to do everything possible I can to remain healthy and active. What do you think will be the life experience of these two individuals with different opinions? The one who says their body will fall apart will probably experience more sickness and illness because of their belief system. The other person will probably live a long, healthy and fulfilling life because that's what they believe and that's what they expect will happen. Thoughts and words matter for the caregiver and the care receiver through the process of grief, as does acknowledging that both individuals are grieving differently. The emotional part of our mind that deals with grief and loss has a significant effect on our daily life. Most people don't think of experiencing grief and loss until someone dies, because then it seems okay to use the word grief. You may hear people experience sadness about losing a pet, or maybe they're angry about not getting a job. One person may recognize these feelings as grief. The other may feel the loss as a different emotion, anger, or maybe even resentment. During the experience of grief, realizing that everyone's grief experience is different. Ordinary thoughts may become chaotic, upsetting, repetitive, and destructive. Caregivers and persons with health issues may feel angry, depressed, or even be in denial. Periods of grief are different depending on the loss. Death may represent a significant loss for one person, while another person may see it as a relief because a loved one is no longer suffering. I know parents who mourn the loss of their children for years. You might even see these posts on Facebook and social media where individuals post photos of people on the anniversary of their death because they are still grieving. On the other hand, I know people who choose to celebrate and remember people who have passed on by pursuing their dreams and accomplishing amazing feats. While it's impossible to know what happens after death, the question to consider is, do you think the person who passed on would want you to feel emotionally distressed, miserable, unhappy, struggle to live, rarely having a break from grief? I don't believe this to be true in most relationships. So then, why do we suffer so much from dealing with grief and loss? We might grieve over happy memories that we won't experience again because someone is gone. The person who died may have been our soulmate, or maybe we're missing a companion. There are so many reasons that people choose to stay in grief beyond normal processes. A caregiver commented the other day about experiencing grief and questioned why the experience is not getting easier. Everyone is different in their approach to problem solving, grief, and coping with difficulties. Some people are more emotional, some are more logical. It takes a mix of both emotion and logic, objective and subjective thinking to move through grief. Initially, there may be a sense of not being able to function. There may be gaps in memory when the mind is overwhelmed and spinning in thoughts of loss and grief. Some people retreat or go within to be with their thoughts. They may take time out from attending social events. There is no one right way to deal with grief. There's only the way you process grief. The other challenge is that well-meaning family members or friends can easily and unintentionally say the wrong thing to grieving people. If you are a grieving person, if or when this happens, please be kind but direct. Their intentions are good. The words they say or their actions are usually not intended to hurt but help. The problem is that they don't understand the help you need. As the grieving person, an appropriate response might be, I understand that you might think you know what I need or should do. Or, you may be placing your opinions and experiences onto my experience. What you said or did is not helpful. It made me feel X. Horrible, terrible, angry. Can I share with you what would be helpful for me right now? If you are the person watching another person grieve, rather than offering suggestions or telling them what to do, if you have an experience of grief or loss, realizing it's not the same, you might ask if you can share how you worked through the emotions and the loss, and then ask what support you can offer. So now let's talk about tips for dealing with grief and loss, realizing there is no one right way. The first tip is to be kind to yourself. Your grief experiences will have different degrees of significance. Not getting the job you wanted may feel very different from breaking up with a partner. or having a loved one die. Tip number 2 is to consider creating a grief diary. This might include writing about feelings of loss, anger, resentment, things you wanted to or want to say to the other person but can't. Sitting with these feelings and then one day burning the diary to release the feelings. Other people may go to counseling. Others may pray or talk to their spirit guides or angels to ask for comfort. You may spoil yourself with a bubble bath or a long walk. Everyone has different ways of coping. Tip number 3, probably the most important, accept that everything may feel out of control for some time and that you are a changed person because of the experience. So in this case, the goal is to find peace and comfort during times of uncertainty. During periods of grief, the mind can go to negative extremes and honestly be unable to see anything that's positive. When grieving, it's important to schedule or make time to get away from grief, to focus on the positive. You might do this during a walk, when listening to music, or spending time with a friend listening to their stories, not telling yours. To move past grief, you must bring happiness and positivity into your life. To do this, you must feel happy and positive. So if your mind continually focuses on the negative, take out a piece of paper or a note card and write down positive statements of gratitude and actions you want to accomplish. Keep these notes with you at all times so that when your mind turns to the negative thoughts, you immediately stop. You take out the piece of paper or note card, read the positive statements multiple times if necessary. If you do this consistently every day, multiple times a day, and believe what you are saying, you must believe, you will notice your mood begin to lift. Tip number 4 is decide when you're finished grieving. One of my favorite movies is The Shawshank Redemption. It's a story about a man who was sent to prison for a crime that he didn't commit and how he and the other men's lives in prison were restricted by the prison guards. For these men, as crazy as it sounds, being in prison became their home, their routine. Being released from prison after so many years was frightening, even though it was a positive event. Being a caregiver, or being a person who needs ongoing care and treatment from the healthcare system, can feel like being in prison. You feel your life is controlled by other people, by medications you have to take, by things you have to do. You don't feel like you have a choice in what happens. You do what you do day after day and just keep going. This type of restriction significantly affects the mind and body. You get in a rut where it's difficult to see a way out. If you're interested or curious, watch the movie or research the text on the internet for the Shawshank Redemption quote, "Get busy living or get busy dying." The story might resonate with your feelings and give you hope and inspiration that dealing with grief and loss is possible and that moving forward through these feelings is even better. You don't have to live a life restricted by your emotions, feelings, mind, or your life situation. You can live a full, happy, and blessed life if you choose. Believe it or not, there are positives to dealing with grief and loss that can result in personal transformation. You will never be the person you were before the grief event. If you're willing to move past grief and loss and become a new person, a stronger person, if you're willing to experience personal growth, all of the wonders and possibilities of life can be in front of you. Re-identify what makes you happy and do these things. Seek to gain a new perspective on life. You may become more empathetic to others who are suffering. You may view life events that you once saw as so serious as unimportant in the bigger scope of life. Most of all, be proud of how you survive challenges and the skills that you learn that make you stronger. And understand that each person in the caregiving relationship is experiencing grief, but in very different ways. Some people never find their way out of grief. Others move ahead slowly, some more quickly. Whatever grief situation you find yourself in, ask what you want. Do you want to be happy? Do you want to get busy living or dying? That's the ending theme of the movie The Shawshank Redemption. Know that your mind plays a significant part in moving through the grieving process. Realize that you have more control over your life than you ever could imagine, and keep going one step at a time, one day at a time. Thanks for being here. Please check out over 180 episodes of The Caring Generation and share this podcast with everyone you know so we can extend the support, education, and love that so many caregivers and the persons who receive care need. I'm Pamela D. Wilson, a caregiving expert on The Caring Generation. I look forward to being with you again soon. God bless you all, sending love to everyone. Sleep well tonight, have a fabulous day tomorrow, and enjoy each day until we are here together again.
Tune in each week for The Caring Generation with host Pamela D. Wilson. Come join the conversation and see how Pamela can provide solutions and peace of mind for everyone. Here on Pamela D. Wilson's The Caring Generation.